What is happening out there, Roto Scouts, basketball, and football fans? Thursday night dual threat show gang, little football showdown slate, little basketball main slate, a lot of cat hair on the brim of my hat right in front of the camera. Got all sorts of things going on. Weird broken slate day, as the chat is already talking about. The sites have apparently decided to honor what people were apparently asking for. First I heard of it was last night, but apparently there's been a lot of buzz on Twitter about, hey, let's cut these late games, let's cut down these slates, make it so that I don't have to stay up all night, and so on and so forth. A lot of complainers, really. That's what it sounds like to me. A lot of people who are going to be happy about this, but then simultaneously not understand why the prize pools are going to be smaller. They cut games out of the slate, they're going to cut entries, they're going to cut guarantees, they're going to divert funds to make a late slate, like a stupid 2-game late slate that'll have 10K on top. Instead of having 50 on the FanDuel one, it'll be 40 or 30. DK, I think, is 50 already right out of the gate tonight with a turbo 2-gamer late. And the most annoying thing is it's going to create total mess for people who cover it, like us. We're going to be looking at boards like this for the rest of the year where it's like, nope. It's not that they didn't come through Sims. It's not that I screwed something up. I mean, maybe I did. But on this one, all those guys that are missing on the DK side of the board, it's because that game's not on the DK slate. DK, to answer the question, Todd Strong. At least FanDuel got up to the Minnesota Lakers game. DK left 2 games off their slate. DK's only going with 6. FanDuel's at least including the 9 o'clock game. DK's only including through the 8 o'clock hour. So you got a total sprint slate on the DraftKings board. It's fun, but it's definitely different, and it definitely creates a lot of chaos when we're talking about these things, so that'll be a lot of fun. Trey was on the wrong video. What's up, Trey? Yeah, I agree, Todd. Totally crazy. But I'm glad you're here to talk it through with me, buddy. It's going to be a good one. So we're going to go through this. We're going to keep it kind of light, just because we've got a lot to talk about, and I do want to try and get out of here at a reasonable time. Just been suffering between updates and everything with my own lineups late. The last couple of days, it's just been total chaos. So I'm going to try and get us out of here at a pretty decent time. I didn't update when we get over to football, I didn't update like the full stats in the football sheet across like every position, because typically we're just talking about like each individual player and what they did through their game log. And I do have that info. So it's just going to be me like reading it off like I normally do, going through that, but I won't have it like up on the dashboard to be like, oh, look at this column where it says the number that I'm reading. I think you guys don't really mind. So the plan is we're going to fly through some basketball, talk percentages, look at lineups like usual. We're going to fly through the ins and the outs of the football slate, the showdown slate, and then we'll build some lineups in the lineup builder like usual, and then we'll punch out at the end. Paul McCarthy, I appreciate you too, buddy. You're very welcome, and I appreciate you coming and hanging out. Josh, what's up? Josh Gillum's here. So we got Trey, we got Todd Strong, we got Paul McCarthy, Josh Gillum, 8-game, I saw 8-game in there, hand pink waving back at you, 8-game. Ryan Radcliffe, happy holidays. This should be a fun one. Let's go Cleveland, Utah, Detroit. It's a hell of a group to be rooting for. Matthew Patterson's calling the JA triple-double tonight. Love it. DK cut down their main slate. That's Anthony Taylor, Mike Brigham going back and forth talking about everything. Anthony's saying, need you to get me to the top of the Christmas tree with the win. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you, man. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year if I don't talk to you between now and then. Whatever you got going on. Happy, enjoy it. Soak up some time with the family or the friends or just hanging out by yourself, not working, whatever you're doing over the next few days. I hope you enjoy. This probably will be our last show through Christmas, I would imagine. I might get on tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'm going to be heading to my parents' house tomorrow yet or not. But we'll figure it out. One way or another, there will be all the content on the website, the projections, everything that you need to attack these slates over the weekend. We got a few football slates. We'll have a few basketball slates. Christmas Day basketball will be a good one. Might have to figure something out to jump on like Christmas Day, like mid-morning, just because that's such a good basketball slate. We'll definitely have content up, so don't worry about that. Thank you, Paul. Paul Millsap. Great content, very insightful and engaging. What is one way to overcome the fact that sometimes the NBA can be full of disappointment? Like with anything else, time and experience in just grinding. Your 10,000 hours, if you want to put a label and a number on it, but just wearing off that edge, I think, is the best thing that you can do. And it's kind of a dismal, unfortunate way to put it, but that is kind of what we do, right? It is a lot of losing. It is a absolute grind with spikes of big wins in between, and then you have small wins to keep you going, sustain yourself. But yeah, they just dulling that edge is probably the best thing that you can do, and just knowing that there's another slate tomorrow is basically the best you can do as far as the disappointment. I had a night like that last night, Paul. I'm with you. Number of pretty good looking plays, and then a couple of just total clunkers that it's like, man, there's 2 or 3 guys just wipe out so many lineups if they're the chalky popular guys. So I had a few of those again last night, but we get there more often than not, and we're staying ahead of the game. And yes, Trey said Jake. I thought that said Joker, because Joker just showed up. He's like over here hanging out. Good boy, yes. So let's take a look at this thing. So we'll do that, because that's going to give us everybody in that Lakers-Minnesota game off the top here. So let me just talk about that real quick. That's your late game on FanDuel. We've already got no LeBron on the Lakers side. We've got AD cruising to a pretty healthy win rate at 11.5, power forward and center only. Karl Anthony Towns at 13%, a little bit higher than we normally see Cat. 7-game slate. He's got power forward eligibility. He's only 8,800 on this slate. 13.6% win rate. We'll probably see a fair amount of them at the power forward spot, I think, when we open it up. But a 1.20 FanDuel points per minute player. AD at 1.49. You've also got Anthony Edwards, AE, in there at 1.22. He comes up a little bit less, but still very, very playable from the high end. Rudy Gobert, a lot less interesting. Playable, mid-range, but that's a little expensive for Rudy Gobert. I know he can have his big nights, but he has a lot of these as well. Just in the way that Rudy Gobert tends to score his fantasy points, you get a lot of lower end performances. If you were here yesterday, I was talking a little bit about as a general rule, and you can't always do it, of course. But when you do have choices, getting away from the low usage guys in a lot of cases does tend to be somewhat successful. D'Lo looks obviously very, very appealing here. 6,400 both guard spots, pushing a 39.3% win rate. One of the higher marks on the FanDuel slate as a whole. That's, 5th on the entire FanDuel slate? Several guys, though. We'll find out who those guys are. But that's some pretty hefty win rates at the top of the board on FanDuel tonight. But from this game, it looks like D'Lo's carrying the biggest one. Rui picks up some run with LeBron now. I've got him at 26 minutes tonight. Out of those downstream guys, and by the way, AD is also questionable. So if AD doesn't go, that just creates havoc in that group of big men for the Lakers. Out of all those guys, the power forwards and the centers, I tend to like Rui the best in terms of being, I think, the best player. I want to say the best player, or at least the guy who can score the ball the best out of that group without help. So I do like getting to Rui in the right spot, and at 4,700 both forward spots, 13.9% win rate right now without a further uptick from maybe having no AD. I think there's definitely room for Rui now, and I think that could only grow. It's not going to go down from there. Taurean Prince with full 30, starters minutes, 30 plus minutes, just his regular projection, not really picking up all that much. He's just a 0.60 per minute player, just a 13% usage rate. And we've got a few guys like that, right? Cam Reddish at a 13% usage rate. On the other side, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who plays 23 minutes, getting a 13% usage rate. A lot of low usage guys. So it's easy enough to stick with the key guys, the obvious names here. Austin Reeves is one of them. Mike Conley's one of them. These guys that are picking up 8% win rates are perfectly playable. Less appeal for Kyle Anderson. He's fine. You can plug him in, but I'll get to Kyle Anderson when he's got a 18% win rate, a 20% win rate. When it's Kyle Anderson just at 3%, I would take in 150 lineups a handful of shares, but I'm not going out of my way for it. If I have more than 5-8% at this level, definitely doing things wrong. For a 3% guy, you want to be around that level at most. And he's another one of these just low usage rate guys. 14.7% usage, 0.88 per minute. He does a fair amount with his time, with his minimal usage. But just in the way that he scores, this is another guy that I can live without. Trey says, speaking of holidays, I feel like DK is drunk with some of their pricing on guys. Isaiah Jackson at 6,700. That's, yeah. We'll get into it. We'll take a look at some of the DK pricing. They've been interesting this year. Hey, nice. 8-game. 8-game says, I was flying the Roto Scouts flag last night when I took down the $100 single entry on DK NBA for $5,000. Nice, dude. It's awesome. Congratulations. So somebody had a good night out there. I love it. Absolutely. Like I said, see, that makes me feel so much better about my my unsuccessful foray into last night's slate. Love it, buddy. That's awesome. Congratulations. A little money in your pocket before the holidays, never too bad. Reminds me, I got to do some last minute Christmas shopping. Yep, Steven nails it. Most nights will not be good in DFS. Trust your process, track your lineups, track winning ones, make tweaks. It's a good way to go about it. But yeah, it's just, it's just setting proper expectations for what winning looks like, what losing looks like, what winning looks like, and how to manage it, how to manage your bankroll and, and create a successful approach that works for you. Not everybody's entering 150 lineups. Not everybody's just making hand building one. There's a lot of people in between. So it's a matter of figuring out what works for you and then just understanding what the proper expectation should be. Alex Baker is not going out there and winning every night. Cheese Tastes Good or whatever the fucking guy's name is not going out there and winning every night. Neither is his brother. Neither is the other guy who copies the lineups from them or any of these guys. I'm not going out there and winning every given night by any means. No one is. There's ups, there's downs. It's just how the game goes. The best you can do, as Steven points out again, is just trust the process, have a good process. That's important. If you've got a bad process, don't continue throwing good money after bad, following bad process, but get to a good process, and then it's just a matter of withering it away over time, right? Not your process eroding the mountain. 10 million years of rain can carve a canal into a mountain, right? So that kind of a thing. It's just good process after a point, then it just becomes process over time, and that's the grind of it. And when you hit it hard, and hopefully that's enough to carry you to the next one. And that's where the, you see people like Adam tweeting all the time about the swings that he has. And that's very, very true. There's big swings. So it's all part of it. I don't know about that, D, but thank you very much. I'll take the great content part. The living legend I don't know about, but living. I'll take living and I'll take the great content compliment. Thank you, buddy. Steven says chat was wondering what you're getting us for the holidays. Got to get some t-shirts with Terry. That's the last thing anybody needs. Maybe the logo. We could do like a little logo. Yeah, special Joker editions. People would love that. That would get you. That would make you popular. So I think those are the key plays from that Lakers-Minnesota game on the FanDuel slate. Your Christian Woods, your Jared Vanderbilts, your Max Christie's, your Jackson Hayeses will probably pop up a little bit further if we have additional absences from the Lakers. Gabe Vincent also out for them, by the way, who had just come back the other day. Additional ins and outs for the rest of the slate that we'll get to here. Pull this bad boy up. There's a lot of them for a semi-short slate. So it's 6 games on DraftKings, 7 games on FanDuel, and I think, 9 games for the day, actually, or 8 games for the day. So probables. Isaiah Stewart available, and Rui from the Lakers available. Jared Vanderbilt actually still technically probable. Giannis is probable. Keldon Johnson's probable. Victor Wembanyama's probable. Questionables. Killian Hayes, Herb Jones, Jonas Valanciunas, Zion Williamson, Cody Zeller, so the entire front court from the Pellies. Andrew Nembhard, Jalen Smith, Miles Turner, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, so all the Clippers, Joe Ingles, Jalen Suggs, Devin Vassell, and Anthony Davis. Outs are Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Larry Markkinen, Omer Yurtseven, Jalen Duren, Larry Nance Jr., Matt Ryan, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, all the Cavs, Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, Markelle Fultz, Torrey Craig, Zach LaVine, and LeBron James. So basically like 2/3 of the players that would be normally playing today are out, it seems like, already. So it should be a fun one. We've already got a few pieces of value. So let's see. All right, so memorize these guys. I think the critical one really to remember as it looks right now is D'Lo with how strong he looks, right? That's going to be a rate that'll as we talk about the rest of the FanDuel slate, that's kind of very important to remember. Just trying to think, how can I actually, maybe I just sort it by FanDuel win rate today, because that'll leave them in, but then I'll get a reasonable representation. So we're doing it backward today. We're sorted by FanDuel win rate just to have it cleaner, and then we'll talk through going back and forth. Why is Craig Porter not having a salary or a position? He came through the sim. That's the good news. But why did it kill my name lookup? Or unless he's not in it. There's a lot of Porters. All right. How's he not in here? Wasn't he? Oh, whatever. There we go. D'Lo's on the Lakers. I'm just looking at making sure these names are. So I think he was the only one. Just needed to add him to the naming table there. That's how you make a naming table, by the way, for those who don't know and ask these questions on Excel. You put the key name there, and then you just create a lookup that says, all right, if you can't find it in what I'm telling you to look up, which is search this against the salary tab, right? That's what the formula does. And then it tells it, all right, go into this names tab instead, look up that name here, return this name, like look up Lonnie Walker. You'll find that on DraftKings, he's Lonnie Walker the fourth, and then it'll look up Lonnie Walker the fourth on DraftKings in the DraftKings salary tab and return the value for you, right? That's what I just did there. So Craig Porter, glad we got him in because he's got a 70% win rate on the DraftKings slate, 53.17, top-ranked player on both sites, most highly owned player on both sites. Again, came out 32.4 FanDuel points in 24.7 minutes last night in that spot start, exact same role, exact same expectation. Should be pretty critical piece of easy value chalk today. See no issues with the play. Everybody's going to have it. He was ridiculously high owned in the large buy-in FanDuel contest last night. He was 90+% owned. Should probably be pushing ownership. I don't know about higher than these in terms of the projection, but right around these numbers would probably be pretty realistic on both sites. And I think you can easily get to him more than that. There's enough room there at 4,600 point guard only, 4,700 point guard only. No real change in the pricing. So he's just as good a value play as he was yesterday. Absolutely can load up on him. Kelly Olynyk, Colin Sexton, Chris Dunn, all three of those pieces from Utah going up against Detroit. Plenty of value there. Several potentially missing, several already missing pieces from Utah. Just creates opportunity galore there. Simone Fontecchio also landing near the top of the board. So he's at 35, Kelly O at 47, Sexton at 45, Chris Dunn at 40 on the FanDuel slate. They're different on DraftKings. There's a lot of price discrepancy here. So Kelly O goes from 56 on FanDuel, center and power forward, to center only 62 on DraftKings, puts him at a 13% win rate. Colin Sexton for 77, both guard spots still 23% versus 45 across town. Chris Dunn, 5,800 point guard small forward versus 4,800 both guard spots on FanDuel, goes from 40% to 19.2, basically gets cut in half. Fontecchio, 35 down to 12 because he goes from 4,800 small forward only on FanDuel to 6,000 small forward power forward on DraftKings. Again, DraftKings also smaller slate, different price paradigms for some of these guys. Like these guys are probably a couple bucks more than they would have been if DraftKings had done this slate in full. They probably would have had them priced more like relatively like the FanDuel slate does. So it's just very, very different site to site given the differences of the slate. But all those guys, especially on FanDuel, just absolutely critical value. Remember when I said we were looking at D'Lo, and I said, well, there's these four guys, and we'll find out who they are. Turns out it's Craig Porter and then half of Utah. So I think we know what's going to show up in a lot of our FanDuel lineups today. It's going to be these, essentially like these handful of guys right here. And then you'll get probably some Max Strus mixed in there with those value guys. And then you'll start just getting whatever are these highly ranked stars. And that's why you're getting a bunch of the pretty good players on this slate popping up to fairly strong win rates because you've got a giant chunk of value plays here. Lot to work with on FanDuel today. see what you guys are talking about. Yeah, Trey, probably. I let 4 Cavs fly last night. I didn't love the results, but I don't know that it necessarily was a mistake. Let's actually look at the Cavs real quick. You know what? I let me take that back. I think you could probably do 3. FanDuel's closer to wanting 4. But since we've got 70, 45, 22, as long as your 3 tend toward those 3 guys, and then you can get, smatterings of the 8, the 10, Max Strus, George Niang for another value play, Tristan Thompson if you need to go extreme value there. But DK-wise, I think you're good with 3. FanDuel, you get a little bit more meat on the bone there. So FanDuel maybe 4, but I don't love it. So I'd probably stick with 3. I think I'm going to restrict to 3 tonight when I do my builds. I don't want to not say that. I'm not like, I don't make mistakes. I don't want to call that a mistake. I'm not sure if it was a mistake to do it that way last night. But I feel like doing it the other way tonight makes sense. I feel like keeping it to 3 like I normally would makes a little bit more sense with them tonight. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I don't think it's tragic, though, if you wanted to leave it, because there is a lot of value in that team just in general. And it could, of course, go in, Max Strus might not just be 10%. He might go out there and hit, the 6 threes that he didn't hit last night. Wasn't a great option last night. He was one of the guys that didn't get there for us. And you can see, there's a number of those Cleveland guys showing value on FanDuel, a little bit less so on the DraftKings board. So let's get into some position stuff here. So Craig Porter, Colin Sexton, Chris Dunn, all at the top of the board, all already touched on. Max Strus, looking very, very good again. 6,100, 36 minutes. Plays a ton of minutes in the right situations. Last night, just 32.9. Probably could have used more out of him, but he only put up 23.8. He just wasn't having a good night. I think if Max is going out there shooting the lights out, he picks up an additional, 4 to 6 minutes beyond what he played last night, and has pretty significant ceiling for a guy priced like this, and a player from that tier. Right now, as is, 27.5% win rate on FanDuel, 10.8% on DraftKings. Sam Merrill, another piece from Cleveland, 26.9% on FanDuel, 0.99 DraftKings points per minute, gets him to 45.6 on DK. He only costs 4,500, shooting guard only over there, showing a ton of value. Is he the cheapest? Until you get down to 4,300, Alec Burks, who I have a lot less expectation for. So Merrill's looking like a very good DraftKings option. Karis LeVert, another piece, 26.7 minutes last night, put up a 40, not bad, 0.96 per minute, 0.97 on DraftKings. In this situation, is he the most reliable scorer on that team? Probably. Which is saying something. That's I never really thought I would call Karis LeVert the most reliable scorer on anything, but he is, capable of scoring the ball in bunches, and out of this group, probably is. Des Baines, 17% win rate on FanDuel, just 9% on the DraftKings board, but definitely a piece of the puzzle on both sides. 1.16 on FanDuel, 1.21 on DraftKings. Ja, a few pieces down here. 7.1% on the FanDuel slate, a little bit better on DraftKings where he's 9.95. Came out and made a statement last night. We had that coach speak before the game. Going to be limited or low 30s minutes. I had him at 30, what did I say, 33 yesterday, I think? I think 33. Debated going to 31, 32 after that came out. Said, nah, let's leave him at 33. I think I stuck him at 33, pretty sure. And then he went out, played almost 35, put up 57.2, put up the highest score for a player returning in NBA history for a player returning from an absence of 20 games or more. Highest actual NBA point total. And also won the game with a buzzer beater layup. Just ridiculous. So good. Mamba's here. What's up, Mamba? Beantown's here. Beantown's favorite's Ja Morant. That's not a bad choice for the top stud on the slate. At least at the guard spot. But like I said, we do have a lot to work with on both sites, really, but especially on FanDuel. And you can see, Bane cracking through here, CJ at 76, Harden at 9,000, There's Ja at 98, Kobe White at 83, SGA not far behind at 11.6, much bigger pay up. But should there be this big a salary gap between SGA and Ja Morant when it comes to NBA talent, what they do for fantasy scoring? I don't necessarily think so. Yeah, I think that does feed into the idea that Ja as a pay up option is probably still a couple $100 cheap. So you can take advantage now before he's in the 10s, the 11s, probably 10s, but. White and Caruso, just with all the absences in Chicago, still hanging on to some value. I saw DDR was on the board before, too. Is he just a forward? It's probably just a forward. But yeah, Kobe White, 38-minute projection, 8,300. It seems like a big price for Kobe White. It feels like a big price, 0.90 per minute. But he's coming through at 8.2% in terms of the win rate, 8.3 on DraftKings. He's a 0.94 per minute player over there, same $8,300 price tag. Just feels like a lot to pay for Kobe White. Caruso at a more reasonable value price, 5.2% winner on FanDuel, not really showing anything at 6,100 shooting guard small forward. Big price discrepancy, only 53 on the FanDuel slate. A couple value pieces, Alec Burks, Agbaji picking up some minutes in Utah, another guy with just some potential to play. That said, just showing a 5% win rate on FanDuel, much higher on DraftKings, 19.2% on DraftKings, 4,900. Got to remember we're sorted the other way around today. Did I miss anybody through the DraftKings slate? So Alec Burks is valuable on DraftKings, so I shouldn't have skipped him. He's 5%. Both those guys, 4.8, 4.7 on FanDuel, but a lot more valuable. 15.5% for Alec Burks, 4,300 shooting guard small forward, 19.2 for Agbaji. He's a shooting guard small forward also. So just price and position based with those guys. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama, not a note about his active or inactive status. Connected with NHL's Connor Bedard for a meeting of the number one picks. Check out these photos. That's the most important thing to ping us with 2 hours before lock. What else? Some good ones, good options down here. SGA actually at a 23.9%. That needs to be talked about on DraftKings. Him at 10-2 versus 11-6, which is probably correct on the FanDuel slate. 10-2 for a guy putting up 1.55 DraftKings points per minute over the course of the entire season. That's bonkers. He is cheap tonight. So he's actually on DraftKings the best probably stud play on the entire slate. I haven't gauged the other guys, but judging by 10.8 for Tyrese, and he's at 0.19. Judging by Ja Morant, 9.5, coming in 9.95. Pretty significant. So that's an interesting spot for SGA. Just kind of a good also ran pay up option. Plug and play kind of luxury item on FanDuel. Sub 5% win rate. Dame, 2.3% on FanDuel. A little bit more than that on DraftKings. 9,100. Not a bad price for Dame on DK. And then Halliburton, kind of like I said yesterday, just in that high octane offense, I never really have an issue plugging Halliburton in as just I have 10,800 left and I've got a point guard spot open. Let me put him in there. He's got incredible raw scoring potential. But in terms of the way that he's coming through in win rates, in the way that he comes through as comparison to everybody else, he's not a key piece. He's not a priority today. 16% for Isaiah Joe on DraftKings. Enjoy that. He's 4,100 shooting guard small forward. On FanDuel, he's 4,400 point guard only. You don't need him at all. 0.02% win rate. 2% for Trey Jones, 4.5% for Cason Wallace. Josh Giddey at 9.7, point guard, shooting guard, 6,100 over there. Not irrelevant to the DraftKings slate. Jump over to forwards. And here we go again with these Utah guys. So Chris Dunn, Simone Fontecchio. There's DeRozan. I knew I saw him somewhere. So each of those guys, Strus, LeVert, a number of guys we've talked about already. But again, just those Utah pieces, with a lack of healthy bodies there, there's going to be opportunity for everybody. They all look better on the FanDuel slate than on DraftKings, but they're very, very playable across both sites. DeRozan, just priced well for who he is. Put up 51.9 in 35.9 minutes last night. Has a little bit more beyond that, a little bit more ceiling on the right day. You can get him north of 60. But that's a good DeRozan game. If you paid 81 for him and got that price tonight, that return tonight on a not huge slate, you'd probably be all right with it. Small forward only, it would be nice if he had multi-position eligibility on FanDuel, but still comes up at a 28% win rate. So one of the better upper middle class or lower upper class, however you want to look at him, kind of pieces on tonight's slate. On DraftKings, 17% win rate at 84, both forward spots. Flexibility helps him out a little bit. Little less appealing, but definitely a key piece from a reasonably high priced here. Strus, we talked about, key piece from Cleveland. Paulo Banchero put up 31.6 in 34 minutes last night. We know he's got more upside than that. He's a 1.10 per minute player, 1.14 on DraftKings. 8,200 on that slate, 79 on the FanDuel slate. With flexibility and a cheaper price relative to the higher cap on FanDuel, he looks a lot better on the blue site. 27.49% win rate versus 5.88, but still playable on DraftKings. Same's true for Patty Williams, 23.5% on FanDuel, just 3.7% on DraftKings, 6,500 versus 5,700 across sites. 72 on FanDuel for Franz Wagner, 8,000 for him on DraftKings, 22.4% versus 3.1%. Lot of price discrepancies today. Bojan, 18% on DraftKings. Hey, he's at the same number. Beautiful. 6,800 for Bojan, both forward spots on FanDuel, 67 both forward spots on DK. 18% win rates on both sites, essentially, rounding in different directions on each. But 32 full minutes, and that's a battle between two god-awful teams. He's one of the better players in that game, just on in a raw sense, but he's very capable of just giving you this kind of a night. 28 FanDuel points in 39 minutes, can disappear at times, but a fairly high usage rate guy in the overall in his 8 games. Wemby, if Wemby's out there, love him. 17.8% win rate on FanDuel at 10-2. Power forward and center eligible is nice. Same positioning on DraftKings, 24.3% win rate over there. Looks like an excellent option. 1.45 DraftKings points per minute, 1.5 FanDuel points per minute. One of the better per minute performers. Still currently questionable, didn't play in the last game, so keep an eye on it. But if he's out there, it's definitely an opportunity. Kawhi, just all 3 of the Clippers, always just kind of looking good. Paul George is right down here. They look pretty good on DraftKings as well. Kawhi looks like he slips on DraftKings. Goes from 17% at 9,300 on FanDuel to just 3% at 9,200 small forward, power forward on the DraftKings slate. Might just be getting cut off by like some Wemby shares when he goes to power forward, maybe some of these cheaper guys at small forward. Just kind of eating up a lot of the shares before he gets to him, I think. Price might be a little bit more restrictive for Kawhi on the DraftKings slate. Paul George doesn't look like he has that big. Oh, no, 46. I was looking at the wrong line. So both those guys, both the Clippers, better on FanDuel today than DraftKings. Was Harden the same? What did I say? I know I saw Harden. There he is. Harden 10.5 and 1.04. So all 3 of them fairly significantly better. All 3 in double digits by win rate on FanDuel. And sub 5% win rates on DraftKings. Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, still like both pieces. I think they both cool a little bit overall, and it's accounted for in the model with the changing rotation there, and Vince is actually right there next to them as well. So they're all still drawing mid-teens win rates on FanDuel. A little bit less so on DraftKings. Vince pulling the best one at 13.89, 5,200 small forward only. The other 2 guys, multi-position eligible, 2 more established players, 2 excellent point per minute options. Their prices are, they need to settle back into where where they should be with the team, relatively stable. So we'll see where they land, but they look playable on both sites at worst, and they look pretty good on the FanDuel board. Lucas Samanic at 38, picking up a little bit of value. Just the shorthanded Utah rotation. I've got him at 18 minutes, sub 1 fantasy points per minute at 3,900 on DraftKings. He's a 25% win rate. Another one of those just price-based value plays that's going to be not mandatory, but it's going to be in a lot of lineups, and justifiably so. Zion, 10% on FanDuel, same on DraftKings. 7,600, 7,800 on DK. A lot of low-effort nights from Zion. I don't know. I really don't like getting Zion in my lineups just because you don't know and there's no way to quantify or figure out the nights that he's just going to go out there and be on the court but not really try. And it's not, I don't think, being too judgmental about the player. Like, I think it's legitimately a thing with this kid. You'd like to see him, pull it together, and who knows what causes it. And maybe he does want to bust his ass, but something hurts when he tries. Or, I don't want to say that he doesn't want to try. I'm sure he wants to. Or I'd like to think that he wants to. But something doesn't click on a lot of nights for Zion, and it tanks your fantasy lineup when he's in there because he's not cheap enough. He's not cheap enough to go out there and give you 20 fantasy points. It just doesn't work. So there's monstrous upside on the right nights. He's got a great projection. 4.72 points per dollar is not ideal, but it's fine. 4.89, not ideal, but fine on DraftKings. But there's better options. And there's options with similar or higher ceilings that get there more reliably. So I don't love the Zion play. I'll have some, but I don't know that it'll be, if the field's around this win rate, I'm probably under. John Collins, 8% on FanDuel, just 0.18 on DraftKings, 7,200 on DK at power forward center versus 66. Big difference price-wise. Aja Thompson, one of the few from the Detroit side of that game that we've seen so far, but Isaiah Stewart's another couple lines down. Thompson, 8% win rate, Stewart, 7.2. On DraftKings, that's 1.5 for Stewart, but Aja Thompson holds on 7.2%, 6,000 both forward spots. A reasonable play from the mid-range, nothing to go crazy prioritizing, but a guy that you can mix and match into lineups. Bobby Portis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, both similar 6.4% win rates on FanDuel, 18% for Portis on DraftKings, outpacing Giannis, who's at 14%. Giannis looks super playable on the DraftKings slate too. So between, what was it? It was Giannis and SGA, right? That was the underpriced. Like, if you can make those two guys your two stars, Giannis at 11 with a 14% win rate, and then a cheap SGA with whatever that win rate was, those are your two lock and load stars on DraftKings tonight, I think. At least from what we've seen so far. Maybe somebody's outpacing him at like center or something. Jalen Williams, 6,400 on DraftKings, 13% winner. 4,900 for Baji, we talked about already. Handful of decent options through here, though, that I want to focus on. A lot of those guys are small forward and shooting guard, so we probably touched on them all already. But Brandon Ingram, I don't think we mentioned his name. Shooting guard, small forward, 40-point projection, 8.6% win rate on DraftKings. Half that on FanDuel, still playable over there. 8,400 both forward spots. Herb Jones. Remember when I called him out the other night and said Herb Jones is going to screw us? Really hate Herb Jones? He went out there and put up 10 FanDuel points in 30 minutes in way too many of my lineups. Not coming through all that much today. I did not put my finger on the scale to influence anything here. Just didn't come up quite the same. 8.2% looks a little bit more playable on DraftKings. But just another fairly low usage guy. Needs to get his hands on the ball. Create havoc on the court to really get his on a lot of nights. And just doesn't do that on a lot of nights. So not my favorite option. Sohan, primary ball handler for San Antonio. 2.6% win rate on FanDuel, 12% on DraftKings. Like him a lot better over there. Point guard and small forward, 5,600. Price and positioning just works for him over on DraftKings. 0.85 per minute. Not a bad option. 37.2 FanDuel points in 32.9 minutes the other night. And like I said, primary ball handler, an okay usage rate, and the primary ball handler gets you there more often than not. Ben Mathurin, 2% on FanDuel, nothing on DK. 11%, $3,800 Dalen Terry. He's a power forward on DraftKings. He's a shooting guard on FanDuel. Because that's normal. George Niang, not showing much above him, but he's got an 8% win rate on the DK slate. So both those guys, moderate value plays on DraftKings. 3,800 for Jalen Terry, power forwards, 0.68 per minute. Just a 19-minute projection. Doesn't give him anything at all at 3,600 at the shooting guard spot on FanDuel. But that price, those $3,000 guys are worth their weight in gold on the DraftKings board. You got to get the right one of them, obviously. It's not just a plug and play of whoever's in the 3,000s and then just fill in your high-end guys. But those are the keys to putting together these high-octane lineups. 9.9% win rate for Chris Middleton on DraftKings. Nothing to speak of on FanDuel. 7,000 on the blue site. 66 on DK. Makes sense that he would be a little bit better over there. Isaiah Joe, we touched on before, but again, 16% winner on DraftKings. You guys can have him. 10% for Najee Marshall. Another option I don't love. 4,100, it's just price-based. It's not like we've got him projected out through the roof. 4.35 per dollar. On FanDuel, he's not giving you anything. He's a 0.97 per minute player so far this season, playing 20 minutes a night in 19 games. So I've got him a little bit under his minutes expectation. And just at a reasonable amount of fantasy points. But the 4,100 gets him there a little bit. Mike, I would imagine that if the Jazz could move John Collins, they would. I know that Markkanen's getting a ton of buzz, but they want the moon for him. I think they said the story I read the other day was 5 picks. Or like 5 picks and an NBA-ready body. Collins is on a... Oh, come on, Sport Track. Close your... He's got 2 years after this one. 24, 25, 25, 26. The 25-26 is a player option, but one would imagine that he would opt into a $26.5 million contract at this point. Yeah, I don't know. It's not like he's old. He's 26. I could definitely see them moving him. If they can get a good offer, get $26.5 million off the books for the next 2 years, well, they're not going to be good. I think that's reasonable. Markkanen is 18 mil on the books, 17.5 this year, 18 next year. And then unrestricted after that. He's also 26. I would venture to guess that one of those guys is not going to be on the team, if not both, at the end of the season. I think they would rather keep Markkanen between the two. But he's also the better asset to trade. What else do we have here? I think we got everybody that was critical. Luka Samanic. I don't remember saying his name. 25% winner on DraftKings at 3,900. Yet another piece in that Utah. On that Utah side. Zion we touched on. Paul George. Thompson. Keldon. Moderately playable. 6% winner on DraftKings. 7% winner on FanDuel. One of those guys who's, he's not a star, but he's not a average player. He's a little bit above average kind of a guy. Could be like a quality 3 on a good team. But miscast as the primary guy on any team. But at 72, 73 on FanDuel, 72 on DraftKings, filling these forward positions, it's not a terrible option. He's a 1.01 per minute player on FanDuel, 1.04 on DraftKings. It's a playable part. Jump to center. We'll look at some lineups, then we'll skip the football. Excuse me. Beantown would gladly have him come to Boston. Yeah, because what you need in Boston is more star caliber or next tier down star type guys. That's what you guys need, especially in the front court. Boston is loaded. That team doesn't win the title this year. I mean, assuming nothing goes completely haywire. Mr. Burns style, 9 misfortunes. Ken Griffey Jr. drinking the tonic that makes his head get all big, and Jose Canseco getting stuck taking things out of that lady's home fire. Ozzie Smith falling down the vortex to nowhere. People under a certain age have no idea what I'm talking about. People who aren't Simpsons fans have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, the center spot. Kelly O, another piece from Utah. Standing tall on FanDuel, center and power forward, 47.5% winner. On DraftKings, just 13.5%. Center only, 6,200. But a key piece on both sites, I think. I think there's plenty of room for Kelly O against this Detroit team. I could see him having a pretty nice game. 19.6 minutes the other night, put up just 22 FanDuel points, but certainly more opportunity here today. Wemby we touched on earlier, 17% winner on FanDuel, 24.3% winner on their DraftKings slate at $9,000. That's a really cheap price. Again, I've said this, I think, every time we've talked about Wemby over the last couple of weeks. I know that he scores better on FanDuel. You can see it right here in the 0.05 of a point per minute that he gets more on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings. But this is too cheap for a guy putting up 1.45 DraftKings points per minute. It doesn't matter that he's, better on FanDuel, so therefore he should be cheaper on DraftKings. Fine. I agree. But it should be like, 10-2 here, so he's 10 over here, 98, not 9,000. That's way too cheap. He has great upside. Comes through great just off the mean projection and has very good upside. Miles Turner, 30.2 the other night, 25 minutes. Looked like he was on his way to a better game than that and then kind of cooled off. Turner can do that to you, but has very, very good upside. It's kind of similar to what I was saying about him on that slate, where Miles Turner just is a guy that you can plug in with a fair amount of ceiling available at the center spot when he's priced correctly on a lot of different slates, and you just have him in a handful of your lineups where a lot of people don't go to him. You can gain advantage at a 12% win rate. I would venture to guess that his ownership is going to be lower than that. So I like getting to him when his win rate exceeds his ownership. I think that's one that you can put your finger on a little bit just because people tend not to go to him. Him, Joval, Zubac, those are the three guys that leap to mind at the center spot that are like that. Here's Zubac down here, just a 4.8% winner. And Joval is right here, but also questionable tonight, 2.1% winner. Out of all three of them on the FanDuel slate tonight, it's Turner's turn. That was clunky. It's Turner's time. But the point I was making was these are those types of guys, not necessarily that they're that tonight. Brolo's actually on that list for me as well. But it's Turner out of that group tonight that seems the most appealing. But I'll have a couple shares of the other guys. On the DraftKings slate, a 0.99% win rate does not get Miles Turner there at 7,800. Killer Han Solo costume yesterday, by the way. Don't know if you guys saw that picture kicking around on the Twitter sphere. Jared Allen, plenty to do for Cleveland, 10.7% win rate on FanDuel, just 0.36 on DraftKings. Not a lot going his way either on DK. Where are all the center shares on DK? Got a little bit here. Some there presumably, but that's power forward also. There's 22% of it. 7,400 going to Chet. Interesting. So Chet Holmgren, 8,500 on FanDuel, center only, 5.6% winner. He's a 1.32 per minute player, put up 49.2 and 24.9, call it 25 minutes the other night. On DraftKings, he's only 7,400. That makes him very interesting as well, kind of for the same reasons as Wemby. 22.7% winner for him, 1.27 DraftKings points per minute, the same 0.05 of a fantasy point difference. Has him fairly significantly cheaper on the DraftKings slate as well. So that makes him really interesting. Definitely a standout from site to site. And the top center-only guy on the DraftKings board, yeah. Top center-only guy, pair him and Wemby in lineups is interesting. You can go, Wemby at power forward, Chet at center, and then grab your, well, you probably can't get Kelly O and then still get to like Giannis, but you can maybe grab your Bismack Biyombo. Nope, 1.85. That doesn't work. Is there a cheapo center here? No, it doesn't look like you have a super cheap center on DraftKings today. A lot of 6s, 7s. Let me sort by DK here. 55 maybe, Portis. But I do feel like those that Chet and Wemby combination is kind of interesting on the DraftKings slate. You can see it right here, top of the board. Putting those two guys in power forward center util, however you want to configure it, gives you a little bit of flexibility around those spots. They're not all that expensive for what they can do. They would push you off of being able to play probably, like I don't think you can get those two guys plus Giannis plus SGA. I think you're choosing between those tandems. But either one of those guys with either one of the superstars seems like a good idea. These two guys together seems like a good idea. I kind of like that off the top there. Portis, obviously, a very interesting option on many slates. Only 5,500, has killer upside. 26 minutes the other night, 44 FanDuel points. That's Portis in a nutshell. That's what he can give you on a good night. And he's very, very capable of going out there and doing it. He's a relatively high usage player for what he does. And he's a very good, scrapper on the court, for lack of a better term. So he's a collector and a creator of fantasy points. I like Portis a lot. Walker Kessler, 15% win rate, 6,600 center only on DraftKings. Another interesting piece on DK. Not all that expensive. 1.03 points per minute. 1.24 points per minute for Joval, 7,200. Joval's a lot more interesting on the DraftKings slate than on FanDuel tonight, assuming that he plays. FanDuel at 8,000, he's just a 2.19 guy. But again, he is one of those guys that at low ownership could come out there and do something like this. 44.3 in 32, call it 33 minutes the other night. So I'll play some Joval shares on FanDuel. If he's owned around this win rate level, I can double that easy enough, get to 5-8% of ownership on him. Brolo is similar to that. He's also showing a stronger win rate on DraftKings, 6,100 center only. So you get some of these guys, Kelly O, Brook Lopez, Joval, Walker Kessler, all showing 10 to mid-teens value at the center spot on DK. There's a $3,000. Kenrich Williams, 12-minute projection. I don't know if I like that one, guys. We're talking about a very low usage rate player. We're talking about a 12-minute projection. Even at 3,200, even though this value price does come through the sim, there are ones that are more believable than others. There are ones that you need more than 9 fantasy points. So let's say I'll be generous and give him a 3-point standard deviation here. So we're talking about you need him to have mandatory need him to have a 3 standard deviation game. And you're not getting that all that frequently. Zion out. There you go. That's a fun wrinkle. So we had him, he was already questionable. Right? Yeah. Haven't seen if there's word on Joval or anybody else yet, but obviously that'll create some havoc and that'll change things up a little bit. Joval goes up. Brandon Ingram goes up. Ingram's going to go up no matter what. He's going to be one of the healthy bodies out there. But Joval would take a little bit of a jump there, I think, and then some of the downboard pieces. Let's get through the end of this. Excuse me. A couple differentiated guys across the FanDuel slate. Well, Zion's not there anymore, so we don't have to talk about him. Vooch, another one of those guys. Decent ceiling on if you catch him on the right night. Right now, 8,600, 6% win rate on FanDuel, 1.09 per minute. On DK, pretty similar, 7.9% for 8,100. Not a bad option, a playable one, but not one to make crazy high priority. There's Jaren Jackson. Somebody mentioned him earlier. 16.7% winner on FanDuel for 8,300. 4.7. Oh no, that was Isaiah Jackson. Somebody mentioned this. Losing my train of thought here. So yeah, Jaren Jackson, 16.7 on FanDuel, 4.7 on DraftKings. Again, perfectly playable. I think I actually talked about him before. Or no, I was talking about Des Bane before. Zubac, 4.8. Biombo, 7.8. Isaiah Stewart, 7 and change. Turner, we talked about at the top. Jared Allen, we talked about already. John Collins, we talked about a little bit. Any one of these guys is very playable. Not all those guys, obviously not the .02s, but the guys with the double-digit win rates or thereabouts. Any one of those is playable. John Collins, Jared Allen, Miles Turner, Isaiah Stewart, Biombo. I think we covered most of these guys. Nobody's standing out here. We got this resorted by DraftKings. That's right. Drummond gives you a little tiny bit on DraftKings at 3.98 for 4,800. I think I'd rather go there than 9 than Kenrich Williams at 9.42 projected. A little bit more to work with. I trust Andre Drummond's ceiling a little bit more, even in limited minutes. Tristan Thompson probably as well. They're obviously a little bit more expensive on that value scale, but I just do not have faith in this one. I think he's more realistically this. Let's jump to Ace Mind. We'll take a look at some lineups. I got DraftKings first. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of Mr. Porter there. You guys can see that, right? Yeah. So that's a fair amount of Cavs. Three Cavs in that one. This one's got 3 Utah pieces and 2 Cleveland pieces. 2 Utah, 2 Cleveland, 2 Cleveland, 2 Utah, 2 Cleveland, 2 Cleveland, 2 Cleveland, 2 Utah, 2 Cleveland. You got basically 2 Cleveland guys in every lineup. I'm talking every lineup. You've got a Utah guy to 2 to 3 Utah guys in basically every lineup. Like I said, that is clearly where all of everybody's value is coming from tonight. It's not going to be a lot of differences in lineups between those guys. It's going to be a matter of who you sprinkle around them. Porter, Colin Sexton dominating the point guard spot on DraftKings. Killian Hayes slipping in there. He's questionable tonight. CJ McCollum slipping in there. Every other spot, there's another CJ. Every other spot, Sexton or Porter. Sam Merrill dominating the shooting guard spot. Max Strus slipping in there. Sexton jumping into that one. Suggs out? No, Suggs is questionable. Questionable, I think. Double check that. Yeah, Suggs is questionable. Or was 3 days ago when this show started. So yeah, it's pretty much obvious chalk. Also pretty straightforward, obvious chalk on a lot of these. Like Isaiah Joe, as we saw, was very cheap and was showing a little bit of win rate on the DraftKings slate. Don't love that play. I'd rather have some Max Strus, who has a much higher upside, obviously a higher price. Herb Jones, I also don't love. Vince is all right. Chris Dunn is interesting, just from that Utah piece. Bojan, I trust the upside there. And I actually kind of like the idea of getting to the other side of that one. Lucas Samanic down the board, except for where we're getting Wemby at the power forward spot here. A couple of Portises as you go further down. Chet, Kessler, Chet, Joval, Kessler, Chet. So fair, not crazy high spend at the center spot, but the guys we expected to get, right? The Chets of the world. We've got a Wemby and Chet right here. So what got in the lineup with Wemby and Chet? That one became Killian Hayes, Colin Sexton, Herbert Jones, Wemby, Chet, Craig Porter, Bobby Portis, Sam Merrill. That doesn't jump out at me as a great lineup. Leaves $200 on the table. It's just, as much as we like these two guys, there's not a lot of ceiling through the rest of these guys. And I don't know that these two guys have enough to really goose you all the way to the top of the standings. A similar lineup: Craig Porter, Sam Merrill, Max Strus, Lucas Samanic, Chet, CJ McCollum, Giannis, Najee Marshall. Just has a little better feel to it, no? But these are coming together very much like what we talked about. All those Chet shares, Walker Kessler, Brook Lopez. Back to the guard spot, you're getting your Craig Porters here when you didn't get them over there. Mix in a couple stars or a couple other alternate scrubs. So like Porter, Merrill, CJ, Sexton, Merrill, Porter, Sexton, Merrill, Porter, Porter, Sexton, Merrill, Sexton, Merrill, Porter. Do you see a theme here? McCollum, Merrill, Porter. Fair amount of Giannis. Zion's will get replaced with probably Giannis's or Bancheros or Wemby's. But we get a decent amount of spend left at both either the guard spot or the forward spot, or if you want to specific position them back on the other side, that's fine too. And then decent spend at util when we're not using it to replace one of the value spots. So like some Giannis here, some Chet, some SGA. Glad to see him creeping in. Some Wemby. Value chalk. Just good chalk. Good chalk today. Good chalk. Good chalk. Good chalk. Playable upside. Playable upside. Good chalk. Playable upside. Playable upside. And then the FanDuel slate, which I'll remind you one last time, has 7 games on it, continuing through the 9 o'clock game, but not the 10 o'clock game. These decisions. So a lot of Sexton here. A lot of Sexton, a lot of Porter. Some SGA. Some Cade Cunningham, CJ, Chris Dunn, some Harden. So it looks like on FanDuel we're getting a little bit more obvious value chalk. Good guy, right? Porter SGA, Porter McCollum, Harden Porter. Some of these are, Merrill Porter, Porter Dunn, D'Lo Porter, Dunn D'Lo. But for the most part, it looks like you're going savings, spend. Probably the same at the shooting guard spot. Yeah, shooting guard looks a little bit more balanced, actually. Because you don't have the Craig Porter option at that spot. I think he's point guard only on FanDuel. So shooting guard does look more balanced. You're getting a lot of LeVert and Vassell and Harden and Sexton and Des Bane and D'Lo and CJ and whoever else in that group that I didn't mention yet. Savings-ish. Some Fontecchio coming through on the small forward spot. Patty Williams, some Rui. So it looks like about a lower mid and then a pretty good player at the small forward spot. Strus, Paul George, Anthony Edwards, Strus, Franz Wagner, Simone Fontecchio, DDR, Simone Fontecchio, Fontecchio and Rui is an interesting one. Some double spend lineups at the power forward spot. Triple J, Jared Allen, Karl Anthony Towns, Kelly O, not really a spend. Jaren Jackson, Wemby, Zion, Cat in that top one. Zion's out now, but it was there at the time. And then a lot of good centers. A lot of Chet, a lot of Wemby, Joval, Zubac, Collins, Turner. Not punting the center spot all that much today on FanDuel. There's a Tristan Thompson creeping through. Yeah, it looks like most of our Kelly O values drop into power forward. Most of our Simoniches fall into that spot as well. I think he has center. Our Wembys go back and forth. And then Chet, Joval, Zubac are all center only. Collins, surprised we're not. I think he's still got power forward eligibility. Looks like he's mostly falling in the center spot. So as usual, FanDuel, a little bit more ability to spread things out, get to good players in more of your spots. But it looks like pretty much going down the line, it's spend, save position by position, and then have a decent spend at center. Merrill now questionable. Hey, that's fun. Thanks for throwing a curveball right at the end of the basketball portion of the show, Mike. 5:35. We do have to talk football real quick because I do have to punch out by like 6 so that I can get basketball updated for this slate. So I'm going to stop sharing this. No, don't leave studio. That would be bad. I'm going to start sharing this one. Nope, that one. All right. The Saints at the Rams. Ignore the the stack rankings. Obviously, is for the main slate. We're talking about these columns, these, and the points, and so on and so forth. Give you guys a little bit more screen here. So 45-point total, 4-point spread, 2 relatively capable teams, at least in terms of their ability to execute on the offensive end. A lot of it comes down to the quarterback play most weeks for these teams. 2 capable running backs in Alvin Kamara, Kyron Williams in this one. So I think it's a good, fun group of players to use for Showdown. There's a lot of different directions this could go. Capable wide receivers in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Obviously, star caliber on that side. The Saints getting Chris Olave back, and then their big downfield weapon in Rashid Shaheed. Plus, they've got Taysom Hill for some weird gadget plays. They've got some downboard guys like A.T. Perry, Lynn Bowden, who might get a look or 2 or 3. So there's options to use. On the Rams side, there's a couple downboard guys like Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson, who might get a couple of looks. Jimmy Graham has scored touchdowns in, I think, 3 straight games, oddly, for the Saints. So there's reasonable, third string tight ends that get into play, which we know we love for Showdown. So I think I'm hoping for a fun one. I don't even want to say I think it's going to be a good game or that it's a good Showdown contest. These primetime games have just largely sucked for the most part all year. But let's hope. Good entertaining game between two entertaining teams most weeks. I think there's enough here. So getting into it a little bit, the defensive corner that we fear the most here is, as always, the Saints against the pass. 5th ranked, 5.7 yards per pass attempt allowed so far this season. Everything else is gettable defensively. Like the Saints are no great shakes against the run, 27th, 4.5 yards allowed per rush attempt. And then the Rams have been mid-level all season long in terms of yardage allowed per play, 4.2 yards per rush attempt, 6.4 yards allowed per pass attempt. Obviously, there's a lot of other metrics to measure these defenses by, and the Rams are not a good defense. So I think that the Saints can definitely score. If Derek Carr can manage to continue throwing the ball to his team and not to the other team, I think we're in fairly decent shape for a few touchdowns out of the Saints side. So good opportunity to mix up shares. But that said, defenses on both sides definitely in play. If I'm picking one, I prefer the Saints. I think they're the better overall defense. I think Carr has a little bit more against Stafford. It's a little bit difficult to say that, but Carr tends to throw key picks from time to time. I think he had 3 potential interceptions that didn't get interceptable passes in his last game that didn't get picked. And then like 3 games in a row before that, he had interceptions. And just more big play upside on the Saints side. Both kickers definitely in play. Blake Grupe from the Saints and Lucas Havershik. I'm going with Havershik. Don't know that I've ever heard that name pronounced. In terms of recent action, which we always like to talk about rather than a lot of these big percentages that are meaningless when situations change, 6 weeks into the season. Kyren has seen 20 plus carries and a handful of targets in each of the last 3 games. He is the clear lead back and the only real guy to be the focal point in the backfield for these guys. In week 13, 21 carries, 5 targets, caught 3 of them. Week 14, 29 potential touches, and then week 15 last week, 34 potential touches, 27 carries, 152 yards and a touchdown, targeted 7 times. Caught just 5 of them for only 3 yards. The week before that, he had 3 catches for -1 yards. Doesn't do a ton some weeks out of the backfield with the pass, but back in week 12, he caught 6 passes for 61 yards and scored twice on the pass. Also carried the ball 16 times for 143 on the ground that game. So he's got dynamic upside in both the run game and the pass game. The most highly projected player on the entire slate. Top of the board in potential points. Top of the board in salary on both sites. So a very, very strong option, but one that I expect will be popular and one that is crazy, crazy expensive. Stafford, 30 plus passes every game over the last 5. Last 3 have been 37, 41, and 33 pass attempts. He's got 12 touchdowns in their last 4 games and only 1 interception. Back in week 12, he threw for 229, 4 touchdowns and an interception. Next week, 279, 3 touchdowns, 294 and 3 touchdowns, and then 258 and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions the last 3 games. So he's been kind of rolling in terms of his individual play. Completing 50-ish% of his passes, a little bit more. 75% in that week 15 game. Cooper Kupp bounced back after a pretty weak stretch. From weeks 7 through 12, he was 2 catches here, 4 there, 2 there, a handful of yards. Wasn't over 50 yards in any of those games. Didn't score a touchdown until week 13 when he put up 39 yards and a touchdown on 6 catches. But then he came back to life, 8 catches in each of the last 2 games, 115 yards and a touchdown in 111 yards and a touchdown in the most recent in week 15. So safe to say Cooper Kupp is roughly back to being where Cooper Kupp is supposed to be. At the same time, Puka, it's difficult to say a downturn because it's like, he was just getting crazy volume because Kupp wasn't there. He's still maintained a ton of volume, 7, 8, 9 targets in every game since week 7 when he last had double digits. Week 7 he had 12, then he dipped to 7 for 3 straight games, bounced to 8, back to 7, 9, 8. Catches about half of them. Has been in the end zone twice since week 5. 200-yard games since week 5. 154 yards on 8 catches in week 7. 105 yards and a touchdown on 4 catches in week 13. Week 14, 5 catches for 84 on 9 targets. 5 catches for 50 on 8 targets in week 15. He's also run the ball a little bit. 5 carries over the last 3 games. 2 in 2 of the games, and then 1 in the game in the middle against Baltimore. So plenty of upside, plenty of just reception-based upside for Puka. If you want to save a little money, get away from Cooper Kupp shares, or vice versa, spend up to get away from Puka popularity, depending on how they're owned on whatever site you're playing on. I think either way, you're not making a mistake. That's one of the more solid 1-1A situations in the entire league. Tutu Atwell down to just 2 targets in week 13, 1 target in week 14. Played only 9 snaps. That's right. You got banged up in that game. But the game before and the game weeks 12 and 13, 24 snaps in week 12. Caught 3 passes for 76 yards on 3 targets. Came back the following week, targeted twice, caught 1 of them for 9 yards on 23 snaps. So at best, it's wildly variable. That 76 yards and 3 catches was the most he had since all the way back in week 2 when he had 7 catches for 77 yards. He's had a couple of touchdowns along the way, 3 on the season. But, a fairly limited target, a fairly limited option. They've been throwing the ball a little bit more to Demarcus Robinson. He had 10 targets back in week 14, caught 3 of them for 46 yards and a touchdown. He actually has a touchdown in 3 straight games. 4 catches, 55 and a touchdown in week 13. 3 for 46 and a touchdown in week 14, and then 2 for 44 and a touchdown last week. So by my math, that means he's going to catch 1 pass for 38 yards and a touchdown tonight. Seems likely. But he's been out there. He's running routes. Carried the ball also for 23 yards in the last game. So they're handing off to the wideouts a little bit. Just, some end around, some gadget plays. Royce Freeman at the running back spot carried the ball just 6 times. 16 yards in the last game. Did notably have 2 carries in the red zone, though, which is kind of important to keep in mind if you're building showdown lineups, which if you're watching this, I assume you are. He's only 2,600 on the DraftKings slate, 7,000 on FanDuel, but at 2,600, that could be an interesting touchdown-dependent piece of value on a showdown slate. He's not off the board by any means. Even with the low volume, if they're going to give him the ball in the red zone, I'm interested in that touchdown upside, if nothing else. Ben Skoranek just mostly playing on special teams. Nothing really to see there. Ronnie Rivers hasn't played in weeks and weeks. Don't know if he's even going to be active. Davis Allen, backup tight end, ran 8 routes. Saw 1 target last week. Was targeted 5 times the week before that. Caught 4 of them for 50 yards and a touchdown. I think that was with Higbee out. Did I skip over Higbee? I think I did. Higbee Higbee was out that week, 14. He came back last week. Ran 17 routes, targeted 5 times, caught 4 of them for 36 yards. Obviously, touchdown upside for Higbee as well. He caught 2 touchdown passes back in week 12. There's only 2 on the season. Has not been above 5 catches, has not been above 71 yards all year. But obviously, the number 1 tight end and renders Davis Allen and Bryson Hopkins fairly irrelevant down here. These guys probably come out of the player pool. All 3 of Rivers, Davis Allen, and Bryson Hopkins, unless something changes. Skoranek, probably taking him out as well. I don't think there's he's not even running routes at this point. Skoranek comes out as well. I should actually probably lower that DK projection. It's just probably clinging to a catch somewhere in that projection model. But Freeman would stay in. He could potentially actually gain a little bit to keep him on the board for people. And then Carr. Let's see. So what were Carr's interceptions? Yeah, it was 3 straight games with an interception. Didn't throw 1 last game. Did throw 3 touchdown passes last game, but only 218 yards. 23 of 28 for 218 and 3 touchdowns. 7.8 yards per pass attempt overall. Has the ability to throw the ball downfield and has good downfield weapons, but they operate, a lot of passes to Kamara. He ran 13 routes, had 5 targets last week, caught 5 of them for 44 yards out of that chunk. He also had 16 carries for 66 yards, 12 carries for 56 and a touchdown the week before, 14 carries, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns the week before that. Also had 6 catches for 58 in that game. So you're talking about borderline 20 touch potential for Kamara most weeks. It hovers right around 20. It could dip to like 18, but there's tons of potential touches on the board for Alvin Kamara and clear ability to put a touchdown or 2 on the board with 100 yards plus from scrimmage. So easily one of the better skill player options in this game. Chris Olave back after not playing last week. Only played 34 snaps the week before, caught 4 passes for 28 yards and a touchdown on 24 routes run, 5 targets. 5 catches for 119 the week before that, 7 catches for 114 in week 12. And actually before their bye week, which was week 11, in week 10 against Minnesota, he had 6 catches for 94 and a touchdown. And he had a touchdown in week 9 on 6 catches, only 46 yards in that game. But that's a pretty solid run of 4 straight games. And then, 3/4 of a game with a touchdown on the board in that game against Carolina in week 14. So Olave's been kind of rolling before the missed game. It was an ankle injury, if I'm remembering correctly. So we'll see how he comes back. But clearly their top receiver and their lead option there, 8,600 on DK, 12.5. FanDuel not doing you any favors on Chris Olave today. Easier to get to on DK by a wide margin. Rashid Shaheed, solid downfield option. 3 catches, 36 yards last time out on 4 targets. Has some big playability. 3 catches for 153 and a touchdown back in week 8 on 3 targets. 2 catches, 85 and a touchdown back in week 6 on 6 targets. Taysom Hill, last game against the Giants. 0 for 1 passing. 1 carry for 1 yard. 1 target for 4 yards. Caught it for 4 yards. Did not do much. On the right day, we know that Taysom Hill can do the whole punt pass kick thing and score a touchdown 3 different ways. On a showdown slate, I have no issues with playing Taysom Hill. I do think there's upside there. 6,600, 10,000. I do wish he was cheaper because he definitely has that downside, and he has that downside more often than he has that upside. So if he got it all popular, I would probably let the field have more of them than I would get to. But just given the big score potential, definitely going to want to have some on a showdown slate. Jamal, limited volume, 8 carries last week for 24 yards, had 11 carries season high since week 1 when he had 18 carries. Put up 43 yards, has yet to score a touchdown this year after scoring 17, I want to say, last year. Juwan Johnson, the true tight end on that team, just ran 11 routes each of the last 2 weeks, 3 targets, 2 targets. Caught 2 for 38 yards and a touchdown against the Giants, though. Does have a lot of skill at the tight end position, I'll say that much. And does have the ability to get the ball into the end zone. Has not been, outside of a couple instances, heavily targeted through most of the year. Most of his games are like 3-target games. Missed a couple, missed 4 games from weeks 4 through 7. But a reasonable enough amount of volume. If it's a situation where everybody and the brother's going to Taysom Hill instead of Juwan Johnson, I'll happily take shares of Juwan Johnson at the tight end position on a showdown slate, especially when he comes in at 4,000 compared to 66 or 8,000 compared to 10,000 on FanDuel. A.T. Perry, just 2 targets last week, caught them both for 34 yards. 1 catch each of 3 games straight before that, 30 yards, 44 yards. So reasonable big play down the field shot, but not going to get a lot of volume. Foster Moreau had a target in the red zone last week, 5 total targets last week, caught 3 of them for 13 yards. This is where he gets a little hairy at the tight end position. They've got 4 guys that can fill that spot on the Saints because Jimmy Graham, like I referred to before, in extremely limited volume, Jimmy scored 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games, 1 each game. He had 1 catch for 6 yards and a touchdown in week 13 on 1 target, 2 routes run. He came out and ran 4 whole routes the next week, was targeted on half of them, caught both passes for 16 yards and a touchdown. And then he came out and did the same thing, ran 5 routes. So the routes are going up. 5 routes, 2 targets, caught them both, 9 yards and a touchdown last game. So again, by that same math, he owes us like 2.5 catches, 6.5 yards and touchdown and a quarter. I'll have some. I don't necessarily believe that trend is definitely going to continue by any means, but they're clearly looking his direction when they get in close like that. So I do think there's upside for the big tight end. 1,600 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. Easy to get to. Lynn Bowden was heavily targeted last time out, but I don't know that continues with Olave back. 5 targets last time, caught 3 of them for 31 yards. 4 targets a week before that, caught 4 of them for 24. Probably does have a little bit more volume-based upside than A.T. Perry. And then Keith Kirkwood as well. Kirkwood, 24 snaps last time, ran 8 routes, targeted once, caught it 7 yards, but also scored a touchdown. It could be looked at as somewhat not ideal necessarily, but somewhat good for a showdown slate that there are this many options that they're willing to throw the ball to in the end zone. Again, those touchdowns last week came with no Olave, but all of the tight ends were healthy last week, and Jimmy Graham still picked up a touchdown. So it's a spread out offense for sure. That said, it'll probably be a 3-touchdown Alvin Kamara kind of a day. Kendry Miller has not played in 5-6 weeks. Probably need to lower that DraftKings. He's carrying a half a catch there or something. This one is the correct projection and probably takes him out of the player pool. Kirkwood, I'm not sure I leave in either. Everybody else, Jimmy Graham, Lynn Bowden, Moreau, everybody else stays in. I don't know that Kirkwood makes the cut. Kendry Miller, I don't think makes the cut. And like I said, Saints defense is my preferred between the 2 defenses, but I will have some Rams defense. And then either kicker, both kickers, whatever you want to do. Hit that like button if you're still here hanging out and you haven't done it already. Handful of folks still here for the lineup building part of the show. We'll get into this. We're going to fly through this. We're going to just do a few because I do have to get basketball updated. And it is coming up on 6. So let me stop talking and actually start building lineups. I tell you what, Derek Carr, only at 9,000. I don't know that I can pass that up for captain spot. Just considering Kupp 11, Kamara 10-8, Stafford 10, Kyron Williams 11-2. Give me some Derek Carr. Carr Olave is inexpensive enough to start us off. Do this, you can do anything you want. No friggin' way. 1 dupe for that? I don't buy it. Yeah, it's a Saints wipeout. I don't know that I buy just 1 dupe for that. That's a good lineup if that's only dupe once. We'll plug that one in on DraftKings. Again, Saints wipeout, but we're putting their defense in there to support that idea. Puka and his ridiculous volume and the idea that he might carry the ball a couple of times. Maybe he runs one into the end zone, so he gets some points, but we don't have to worry about Stafford points along with that. Kupp gets shut down by this good pass defense that we're riding here. Jimmy Graham gets his stupid cheap touchdown. Alvin Kamara has a day, and these guys just connect a few times. You're off and running. That isn't bad. So obviously it's build whatever you want day on DraftKings. Let's see what we can do with let's go all the way to the top. We'll put Kyron in the captain spot. Not his salary, though. That's not going to work. Let's go. Kyron will go back to Carr. Let's give Carr. Let's go a different direction. We'll give him Rashid Shaheed, and we'll give him Taysom Hill. Nah, actually, you know what? Let's give him Juwan Johnson. Somebody's actually going to throw the ball to. That leaves you 66. You could double that. You could go like that is weird. And then you've got 66 right back. Makes it a little challenging. You get Higbee at 58. I don't know that I want Higbee there. I don't know that I want to do that. Let's kill that because I think what can I do here? 10, 32, yeah. Go like that. And you go like Lynn Bowden. You could go, you go Royce. There you go. That's interesting. Only 2? We're building some low-owned lineups here, gang. I don't dislike this one either. It's got 600 left if you wanted to take that 600 and make somebody into something else. You could obviously, like I said, you could go to Lynn Bowden. You could obviously go to Jimmy Graham if you wanted to take it down even further. I can't get DeMarcus. That's who I was thinking. Kirkwood, no. Skoranek, no. Kendry Miller, no. Hopkins, no. Davis Allen, no. Could I get the... No, 26. I'd have 32, so I can't get the kickers or the defense. 34 for the Saints D. What's the Rams D? 38. Well, this one's pretty good. If you took Jawan out of it and went 46, then you could get Groupie in there. That's only 4. It's not bad either. Let's see what happens if we go Cooper Kupp. And we'll give him Stafford. And let's just go high volume pass game. Top 4. $29.50 per spot. So give me Jimmy. And now I got 43. You can go Juwan Johnson. You could go Jamal Williams if you wanted him. You could go right back to Royce Freeman. You could obviously go to any of the A.T. Perrys, Lynn Bowdens of the world. You could get the Saints D. I don't know that I want the Saints D against the Kupp Stafford pairing at the top, but you can get it. You can take the Rams D at the same time. That might be the better approach. Another low on one. It is less challenging than usual to build low-owned lineups on DraftKings today. You're going to get do a weird one before we kick over to FanDuel. This is not recommended. Zero? Well, that can't be possible. Something screwy. I don't. Okay, maybe it's just sub 1 and it's just calling it 0. .35. I don't actually like this lineup because I don't actually think Taysom Hill has enough. I mean, he's got enough ceiling to support a captain play, but realistically, it is actually fairly low volume. He's extreme boomer bust. So if you did play him there, do it conservatively in like just a couple of lineups, and they would have explosive upside on the right day. And the fact that you can put like these guys, that group of guys in with them, and obviously if you can get these guys, you can just do something like that. Put the quarterback in there and get some correlation. It's very easy to do. Lot of available builds on DraftKings today. Let's see what FanDuel looks like. Joker, quiet. We're almost done. 6 o'clock. Gotta hurry. Let's just go Mara, Puka. Double kicker. 80. More challenging on FanDuel, clearly. That was a double kicker lineup, too. Shit. All right. Can we get anything interesting with these guys? Let's see. What happens if I go Jimmy? Jimmy was obviously the linchpin to keeping those lineups super low on, by the way. That brings us down to 10 already. And leaves me 11-5. Go Jimmy Taysom. Double up that tight end to get it down to 2. That isn't bad. See, this I would play. Although, well, if Taysom throws a touchdown pass or 2 to Jimmy, That would pay off nicely. I probably want the quarterback in if I'm playing 2 tight ends from his team. But the fact that Taysom does throw touchdown passes from time to time makes it a little bit more playable than a combination of these guys normally might be. And then obviously, this combination is probably more realistically better. Not in this lineup because you're spending too much, but these 2 guys are the primary tight end targets. And then Jimmy's more your dart throw. It's not bad. I would play that lineup. I don't mind having the defense against the running back, especially. And then against the tight end, typically, especially with a guy like Higbee, you're not going to be too worried about like multiple. He's perfectly capable of catching 2 touchdown passes, don't get me wrong, but like game-breaking player against your defense. It's not Tyreek Hill against your defense. It's not the quarterback against your defense. So I'm willing to take that. And, New Orleans puts up a few sacks on the board, a pick, a couple of points that can't be, reduced. And you're probably supported enough there, even if they do score a touchdown apiece. So that's not bad. Both sides, a lot of ways to put together low on lineups. Kind of excited to go build some lineups for this slate. Beantown Jamal had 1 red zone carry last week, 1 the week before that, none in week 13, 1 in week 12. Then you have to go back to week 7. He had 1. He missed 4 games, and then he had 1 in week 2 and 3 in week 1. So I feel like every game, basically, as they get down inside the 20, they're going to give him 1 look. Probably once they get more inside the 10, like Jamal range. But he just hasn't really done much with them so far this season. But I think on this format, that is kind of ideal for our purposes, right? Give me the desire to have them, that they have to punch Jamal into the end zone once before the season's over, preferably twice, when people don't go to him when he's cheap on a showdown slate in a game where, how many touchdowns overall are going to be scored. If I can pick off 1 out of 4 touchdowns that are going to be scored, that's a tremendous advantage. It felt like more. Yeah, it usually does, right? As you're watching these games, it just seems like more than, 15 carries get racked up, or more than, 2 touches or 1 touch in the red zone get racked up. I totally know what you mean. With that, though, you guys, it is 6:04. I've got a lot of updates to make for NBA, I'm sure. I got to get some lineups built, and I don't want to screw over the people waiting patiently for NBA updates. So let me jump. Let me get on that task. Hopefully everybody got something out of the show. I know I did. Got caught up on the football slate, and feel like we got a strong position, at least on what the basketball slate used to be. We'll see what it looks like when we get closer to lock. So keep an eye on rotoscouts.com for projection updates. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Hit the like and the subscribe here. Jump into the Discord, so on and so forth. More important than that, if I don't talk to you again before the weekend, have great holidays. Have a great weekend. Hang out with your friends, your family, eat some good food. Hang out by yourself. Smoke some weed, whatever you're doing. Just enjoy. All right. I will talk to you guys. I'll keep everybody apprised of what the schedule is going to look like. Projections and everything will be up on the site as usual. But happy holidays, you guys. I will see you when I see you. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Adios.